Okay.
Alrighty, good afternoon, guys. This is the Bullcritter's Corner. This is Steve.
And this is John.
And today we're going to just sit down and talk about our thought process on module creation, since that's what we've been working on.
Yeah, we've been building a module so far for a little time now. Hopefully to be released this month. And we were just going to talk about some of the things, the steps we've been taking to get that module complete, how we've been going back to review those steps and see really what order we know now things need to be done. Certain things lead to other things happening, you know. We've got a storyboard built up on the wall, but that's not where we started. I think the first thing we started was just in the conceptual stage.
What we started with was a very, very broad story planning. We went with what we wanted, the very, very most basic steps for Module 1, 2, and 3. So we could start getting ideas for the more minute details coming back to the earlier modules, number 1 and 2, and how they would connect to what we had intended for the following modules.
Yeah, we have, so we built 3 modules, the idea being that the first module is 1st through 4th level, and then 5th through... Fifth through, what is the...
5th through 10th, essentially.
5th through 10th, and then 11th through, or 10th through 15th.
10th through 15th. Essentially, we're doing 3 5-level parts.
Yeah, and so what we did was, we first started going, okay, let's build out what we want in this first module. We have had a recent role-playing campaign that we kind of borrowed inspiration from for a lot of the story elements that we were looking for. And then what ended up happening was, we said, okay, let's break in to make Module 1, and then really we realized, wait, if we're going to put things in Module 1 that tie to an overarching story, we need what every story needs, which is a beginning and an end. Because without knowing where you're going in the end, the middle you fill in.
Yeah.
And so then we built out Module 2 and Module 3, and just in doing that, we found so many things that we knew we could add now to Module 1 that would set up these other things. And things that we already had in our idea of Module 1 that would build directly into the stuff we wanted it to anyway. So each module has its own story arc, plus the 3 modules in combination have one larger arc should someone choose to play all 3. And I think the next thing we began was character descriptions.
Very basic character descriptions. I think the reason we landed on character descriptions next mostly was due to the fact that some of that was already mostly created or partially created.
Yeah, from the inspiration of the
I think going from bare bottoms or bare bones, I think the next step really would be the storyboard.
Yeah, so we built out a series of 3x5 cards. And we created categories of level, so level 1, 2, 3, 4. And we determined, based on how much experience was needed to gain each level, that we could put certain quests in each level category, and each level category would be in a certain area. Not to limit a DM from allowing their party to leave that area, but what it allowed for was us to fully understand we're going to need this many quests in level 2. Why? Because they need to be level 3 by the time they reach this quest line series.
Yeah.
And based on that,
quests,
and the
plot lines, areas where you can get experience beat encounters,
and things whose CR rated are adjusted for those areas. And the main reason we did it this way, I think, and the way it kind of naturally formed out this way, is because when we made our module, we were very conscious of the idea of what other modules do, which is a very, very linear path. And what we created in our discussion of a module is not a linear path. It's like a trilineal. Like there's more than one path to take. Some of those paths lead back into others, so the options aren't restricted once you've made certain decisions.
I think for our first module, a lot of the things end up coming back mostly to the same path, but they're different
ways of getting there.
Different ways of getting there, and the outcome will be slightly different based on how you go. So it's not really the exact same path.
Yeah, there's two. The first module. There's generally, I believe, two paths that are clear of how to get the story done, but those are like almost like fake choices. Like the illusion of choice.
Yeah.
But by module 2 and module 3, you're making actual choices that impact the world as you continue in the modules. Like module 3 will literally say, if this is what was done in module 2, this is the world. This is what was done in module 2, this is the world.
We do have a very small handful, I think maybe 2 or 3 things that are in module 1 that will have carryover into the second and third module.
Yeah. Now, again, if this is something you only played the second module of the third module, the DM would be deciding what this world had already been doing.
Yeah.
And might even fill you in and say, your characters start off at 5th level, but this is what they had been doing in first through 4th. And so we created short character descriptions first, which when we say short character descriptions, we literally just meant we mainly pulled from people in the city. We determined how many people in each area there would need to be for the size population and things that would be there of interest. And we just built those people's names, and we built
very
like basic
character
descriptions and like senses of their motivation or like their attitudes. And that's the point where we kind of left those things. And then we moved to this storyboarding wall, built out all of the ideas we had came up with originally, realized that there were certain ways we had to lead from one of these quests into another. How do we drop the information for these quests? Where does that get tied into? And so on the storyboard, we're really able to kind of determine what order some of these things will fall in, and then we broke down descriptions of those things, and began making some maps for certain
after we had the storyboard, then we knew what we needed in general for dungeon maps or area maps. We also created at least one random encounter map. We're going to generate a few more.
So we built some of these maps. I guess I would have to hold it like that for it to be really visible.
You might have to go closer to the camera so it's not right under the blinding light.
Yeah, and what we did, we build these maps here on paper, and then we go into the dungeon mapping software to then...
we'll be going into Dungeon Painter Studio, and in there we'll construct the maps again.
And so then we'll have printouts of the maps, and possibly in the future digitally available maps for Roll20 and other online services to roleplay. So after we finish those things, that pass there, what we really have now left is the random encounters maps. We built the random encounters. That's another thing that we built after we built the quest descriptions.
Yeah.
We built encounters. We started thinking about some unique encounters that could be there, and how we could average those encounters across the party levels on a random encounter table across 1st through 4th, so that nothing is too horribly deadly. But, like we mentioned during other podcasts, a strong opinion that we have, especially, is that not every fight necessarily is one to be fought. Sometimes you should be running away as well. Or else, danger isn't imminent. It's just one more thing you're slogging through. And then what we have a plan for is... and I think we're still up in the air exactly how we want to accomplish it, but we've got 2 ideas now on the table. So the people in our module that start off at 1st level will be starting as members of a mercenary group.
Yeah.
And so what we've decided to do is, as part of the module, the mercenary group has starting packages. Now, we were either thinking originally of this large pool of items that a certain amount of points each character gets that they can invest in those items to get things like horse, or certain items that are specifically important to either different plot points or monster features. And then we came upon another idea.
Yesterday I kind of landed on the idea because I was thinking about what we were what you were talking about and how to lay that out. And while I was thinking about it, I kind of got to the thought process. If you have a very meta-minded group, even if they don't know what they're walking into, no matter what you put across that list of options, a group that has a very strong meta mindset can find a way to be somewhat abusive with that. Now, that isn't necessarily a horrible thing, but to mitigate some of that abuse, I started thinking, why not create a couple of different full-on packages?
Yeah, like different class
It's
features or like support.
yeah, it's almost like the package that you get, like when you pick an adventurers pack. Although you don't know right now off the top of your head, and I don't know what's off the top of my head.
The adventurers
is
pack
in a
is
pack.
mostly things for travel, rope, and getting around obstacles.
Yeah, it has that. It probably has 10 days rations.
Because travelers pack is mainly the travel related things.
But yeah,
and dungeoneering is mainly the pythons and things for traps and etc.
The thought process on it is a group wide pack that fills a role. So, in that context, maybe we'd call one like an Outriders pack, which would come with like 3 or 4 horses, the tackle and shit you need for a horse. And those sort of things. I haven't fully developed that. The other thing that I kind of landed on that I want to talk to you about, and I'm just going to bring it out now, is what about offering some sort of a group-wide bonus for each pack?
That could be possible.
Like a Cavaliers pack maybe gives you a bonus with animal handling checks or something like that, or I don't know. I haven't developed it
based on like the training that your particular squad got. Yeah, the mercenary group.
So it would be a benefit that would carry through.
That feels like kind of like when you play the PC games or different games where you create an army, and that army is the army of the flying toads.
Yeah.
And then from years of its use, it develops these certain aspects of where it's better because of the way that particular army trains and does things. And so you're part of that. One of the ideas I had thought of, what is it you did by individual character? So you do classes literally like assault, shotgun, like imagine SWAT. Like where you go, we have one guy, like Dirty Dozen. We have one guy, what does he do? Well, he's the engineer, cuts through wires, and he disables traps, and does that. He has these extra bits of things that help with that. What does that guy do? Oh, that's the guy that handles the animals, and he takes, he's the mechanic.
So the idea that kind of brought me to thinking about the packages in that way is what Matt Colville is doing with his current game, which is very much in line with what you're talking about. His players are the leading officers, the senior officers of a mercenary company.
Okay.
And so, like, one of them is, like, the field commander, and one of them is, like, the I forget what the title is, but one of them is, like, the spellcaster for that group, and this for that group. And holding that title gives them access to a special ability. I was thinking possibly doing it as a much smaller extra ability that covers the entire group. I don't think that at the first level, especially since the path of the story isn't necessarily following them staying with that group, giving them a continued bonus for each individual character class that way is a bit weird.
Well, I'm not talking about for individual bonuses. What I mean to say is, okay, so if you were to be the thieves, like the Dirty Dozen engineer, the combat engineer, the guy who's disabling traps and whatever, as far as like their labeling of whatever that is. What I mean to say is, no, you get these items. So what do? Oh, well, you get the kit. You get tools.
Oh, okay. So you want to...
you get this. Plus, you get this item here. And if this item here is used on this quest here in this way,
you
pretty much
you essentially want to
difficulty.
make a whole nother pack, like a sapper's pack, a captain's pack.
But where specifically the items in each of those, each one has at least one item that if used at a particular time in a particular quest, can solve that quest without the difficulties that are there. So, like, you harken back to the old PC games like King's Quest and things. You've got this thing that you picked up in this one room. What does it actually do later for you?
That's an interesting idea.
And that way you tie it into the quests. And people might not ever know. It's almost like an Easter egg of things. But if somebody figures it out, oh my god, how... Like, imagine somebody goes, well, what if I took this rod that I found earlier and I put it here? What would that do? And the DM actually reads a thing from the module saying, when you place the rod in the blankety blank, oh my god, that's from my starting pack.
Yeah.
Like, why would that?
I like that
my
idea.
goodness.
How's it going, Commander Root?
Hello, Mr. Root.
Actually, I kind of like that idea.
I think it could be interesting.
I think if we're gonna go into that direction, we have to take another look at the mercenary company to see what kind of roles they would actually outfit them.
Yeah, see, that's
the thing.
Exactly.
They unlike standardized military that would cover a very, very large plethora of roles.
Find out how the Musketeers ran their operations.
It would be a more
fashion.
specialized.
Because the idea too is it's a good replay value as well. Like so you've played one time as this. Well, when you play as this,
so I don't know.
You have a different
I like
option
now
for
that you're
things.
talking about it this way, I'm almost thinking like building in the background for a Rosalam sapper, a Rosalam.
Yeah, like in this.
And that way, the equipment bonus on top of we can not just build the equipment bonus. Then we set the proficiency. It's like building the full background, which actually, following this concept, wouldn't be nearly as much work as initially creating a background might seem.
No, not. I mean, as long as you're finding a way that the backgrounds are wide enough that anybody can create the character they want to when they come into the module. I mean, some modules use pre-made character sets. Never been a fan of the idea. Although
I wouldn't say pre-made character set. As far as a background goes, I think really like
if you give somebody
setting,
a proficiency, it should be a bonus, like just on top of everything. It doesn't.
Well, no, it's just
things.
like the background. If you pick local hero, a background.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying, a background.
And then and it's Rosalam this, Rosalam
you came up and you decided to join the Rosalam and fell into the sapper's profession.
Yeah, fencing,
depending on what we decide that they would actually
infiltrator.
use. So I kind of like that idea.
Yeah.
It allows you to flesh it out some more. I think it also lets you give a more flavored approach to characters coming up in your world. Because the thing is, if you create a bunch of these backgrounds, right? When we collate and we decide if we ever get to that point where we go, oh, well, we want to create a world book, in the characters options section, we can go, well, there's all of these backgrounds.
Yeah.
So, maybe your character, before they became an adventurer, was a Rosalam engineer. Rosalam.
You know what's kind of neat about that too is like folk hero, right? That's a background, right?
Yeah.
Fit that folk hero. But there's like 8 different types of folk hero, or more. There's tons of different types of things folk hero can mean, but they very narrowly in the background kind of like pin it to mean this right here.
Not really.
Well, I guess you get to pick the different proficiencies and things like that.
You get to pick from a handful of proficiencies. They
pretty wide, actually.
For the backgrounds that they've created inside of the D&D's core book, they made it focused enough that you have an idea, but then within that focus, they made it very broad. Especially since they give you the ability to random roll a lot of different aspects of it. It's like if you end up picking criminal, I think there's 12 different options for the type of criminal you are. So, it's not just, oh, I'm a criminal. Well, what does that mean? Oh, I'm just a criminal, man. No, it's...
Look at law and I go, not today, law.
No, you might still play your character that way. But when you pick the criminal background, you should pick one of those 12 keyed in, or if you find a criminal profession that is outside of those 12, you should still pick. Because your smuggler is going to be entirely different than your alleyway thug. I forget what they called it, but essentially a mugger.
Yeah.
They're both criminals, but their thought processes on the world are two very different animals. One of them likes to jam people up and take their crap. Another person just likes to take other people's crap and sneak it into places.
Yeah, the other person is just like, I just want to do a job.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here to hurt nobody.
So...
look, it's just a bomb. I mean, how am I supposed to know that it was something that was going to be used to hurt people?
Actually, I think one of my favorite backgrounds. I haven't played it yet. It's my favorite just in concept. Is the variant performer, because with the variant performer you can take gladiator, which to me makes so much sense because really, unless you're a slave gladiator, what you're doing is an
Exhibition.
exhibition. I don't know why that word was not coming, but yeah, you're an exhibition fighter. So even though you might get hurt, the end goal is not for you to die unless you're very, very unlucky. But I mean, most sports people, if they get very unlucky.
Yeah, it can go very, very bad. Very,
So-
very quick. Well, they have the ability to cure wounds. I don't want to hear any excuses for somebody being hurt at that point in time.
Well, but they don't get paid the way our athletes do.
No, what I'm saying is like, look, if my leg is broken, I'm just as a tangent here. If my leg is broken in half,
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing I've always had a problem with, like with how D&D works. They're not very clear on where the line is for like, if my leg is now missing, does cure wounds cure
No.
it? Yeah, I know, but like if I had the leg with my other leg and I put them back together and I cure wounds, it would work, right? Yeah, exactly. It would have to. Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't believe so. I believe regenerate very specifically says that if you have the other body part, you can get it to reattach.
Reattach.
And by stating it within regenerate,
So what does
it would
wounds
clear.
do exactly when it cures wounds? Because it's taking a piece of your flesh, chunky flesh that's gone, and putting it back.
Yeah, it fills it with a scar. It's like you healed. So if you had a
So
missing...
I have my bone is poking out of my leg.
Yes,
right?
it'll snap your bone back in place.
Yes, it'll literally reform, push my bone back where it's supposed to go, put it back into place, and heal everything around it.
But at the same time, really, if you're being hyper literal the way you're being right now, for a broken bone, like not a fracture, but a broken bone, you would need regenerate.
Oh, well, 'cause the only reason I'm thinking is like,
If you're being that hyper literal,
So real quick, what happens? The guy who owns the gladiator is like, this is not worth my money to get cure wounds. They dip the gladiator off. If you're a cleric, you just got like a servant for one cure wounds. This guy's about to die. He's gonna bleed out and die. No one cares about him. And you're just like, cure wounds. Okay, you're good to go, buddy. Hey, you want to travel with us? I mean, I would just be hanging around gladiator pits inside an army.
if you were an evil cleric or a neutral cleric, that would make a lot of sense. If you were a good cleric, you probably would have an issue with the fact that they're slave gladiators. So
They can buy their
you
freedom.
would be there. It depends on your mindset and your god.
Yeah.
I will give you that. That is
Everybody thinks they're all to something. No, in real life, after reading about how peaceful the gladiator, like the only time people died en masse was when they did that dumbass stuff with the ships. That
It was pretty cool though.
The quadriga or whatever, the chariot racing, which was actually in the circus.
Well, the
Maxims,
chariot
was
racing
10 times more dangerous before more than and those weren't slaves.
No, those were
those were well stocked folk stuffs. And,
Yeah.
and the thing is if you fell off of it or you were dead. You were dead.
super dead. So back to the module though. The next step we're finding ourselves coming towards here, hopefully by probably Wednesday or so, is formatting. And by that I mean, the format in which you put it into the actual module.
Yeah, like the design, the actual design of the book itself. Every official Wizards thing has a design. It's kind of what we're leaning towards.
And that
we also
design-
have access to all of the Wizards assets, so we're going to be able to incorporate those into fleshing out the book.
Because of the medium upon which we're going to be selling it, we can use a good amount of the Wizards assets. But moving forward into future modules, that is going to become less of an option.
Also, so one of the things we actually skipped that we did here was around the time we had built the storyboard, but before we actually measured out the encounters and did all that, we actually stopped, looked back at what we had done and how we had done it and what needed to be done, and refocused ourselves again. I think that's a very important step of any project, especially of this module creation. If anything I learned is the ability to stop, step back, go, what have we actually accomplished? What has been accomplishing well? And what do we need to do in the future to continue? Accomplishing
Essentially the role of a project manager in a larger situation, a larger company. We had to stop ourselves and step out and actually project manage a little bit before we could just dive back into it, because we're beginning to flounder a little bit under what felt like an enormity of work, but now that it's actually getting done, it's not as terrible as it really seemed.
Yeah, and some of these things are really neat. I like them. Like one of the things we have for our module, if you don't mind me sharing, is we was inspired by one of our role playing sessions where we had a reoccurring how do you pronounce it? The land shark.
A boulet.
A boulet, yeah. So a reoccurring boulet. And what we had found out is there's a boulet in the area, and if you happen to have a horse, it tries to come up, attack your horse, kill your horse, and drag it away to the hole with it and go away. And so this is an encounter that, should you not happen to have a horse, you would not even run into. But if you have a horse, or any of your party members have a horse, a donkey, a cart, then automatically it triggers on the random encounter table as a possibility to be encountered. And the idea we had was this massive land shark that was actually a CR3, 4?
No, land sharks are base CR5.
Base CR5. So what is this base CR5?
It's going to be base CR5.
So it's a base CR5. So but the party can technically encounter it by level 2.
They could.
Now, if they encounter it again, this is not something that it needs to be fought and beat. It's, like I said, going to attack the horse that's there, or the cart.
Yeah, its goal is to get the biggest animal or the biggest creature. So I think the only way you could cause it to possibly stay in the area is if you could somehow shrink the horse and grow someone else.
And then it'll attack that person.
And then it'll attack that person because it's trying to... It's an animal that wants food. So it's going to get the biggest amount of food it can.
With the least amount of trouble.
And then it's going to dive back into the ground, which isn't 100% characteristic of a boulet. Is they're ravenous and would eat everything alive.
Well, that's another thing that we were talking about, almost talking about today, which is the idea of when you create a world, that you're borrowing and lending from these creatures that have already been created, but that does not mean that you can't take those very same creatures and completely alter their
flavor them, make them
something else
significant to your world instead of just the core canon.
Oh, is it not an intelligent monster? Now it's an intelligent monster, and it has this kind of feature of culture.
It's I don't know about what the core game has in this regard, but in our world, after our world building, we now have frost ogres. I believe there are frost trolls, but now there are definitely frost trolls in our world. So there's some variants. Oh, we have magma elves or lava elves. So we've got some unique creatures going on in our world now too, which will be interesting to see how that all plays out in a grander scope.
And that's not in the module. That's in the role-playing game that inspires the module.
Yeah.
The world created is a lot larger than the module, and this module is set in a world that's actually been played now for quite some time, nearly a decade, right? I believe.
I wouldn't say that long, but it's a world that's been being built on and off throughout a lot of my D&D DMing career.
Yeah, so like
I'll pick it up, and elements will go into it, and then maybe that'll get set aside, and we'll play in other worlds. But essentially, whenever I run a game, I don't run one of the canon worlds, so there's a good chance that you're probably in that world, just in an area that the players have never been in. And because of that, you have an opportunity to add something to the world that is long-lasting. I try to make a point of telling every one of my players that step into my game that that's a possibility. You know, if you're creating something, there's a chance that it's going to be in the longer-lasting realm of the world.
Yeah, that's one of the best... I think in module creation, one of the best ways to start your creation is to start with inspiration you have from other games, movies, stories, things that really touch you. If you're really interested in the topics, the feeling that the game has, you're going to be more likely to continue working on it and to come up with some good and inspired thought.
Yeah.
As of now, yeah, we've finished encounters. We really don't have much left. Maps in the digital form.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've done the basic format of the maps. Now it's digital form maps.
We already have the details for the encounters. We just don't have all of the encounters built for the entire bits. Research module format. Yep, that's it. Oh yeah, and handout creation. When you're creating a module, look. Here's the thing. I've been online looking at some of these modules, and I'm not going to dog a whole bunch of people out there, but this is the thing. I'm a firm believer that if people have come up with awesome ideas on how to make a game or play a game, any kind of game, PC game, computer, video game, if you're making an RPG and you don't have stats for your characters, okay, you done messed up. You done messed up. Why? Because stats for characters has been done. It's an easy idea to come up with.
Yeah,
Unless
if
you've
you've given a name to an NPC just because there's a possibility that that your players might decide to murder hobo their way through it, stat them. Now, by statting them, that doesn't mean that every character with a name has to be a 10th to 15th level character.
No, I don't. Yeah, I mean, you need to do that for interactions and other things, at least the viable and important interactable things.
Yeah.
But what I mean to say is, handouts are a thing that DMs have been using for nigh on 50 years, 30 years. Probably since the first
they've definitely been around since Gygax. So.
Yeah, exactly. To get across a point, an image, a thing, to solidify it by putting it in the hands of the player. That's a tool that's already been thought of and developed. It's out there. If you're going to make a module and you can find things that actually deserve to have a handout, you should make the handout. It doesn't take that much time.
Handouts don't even have to be hyper complicated. It can be a crudely drawn map. Another one that I haven't done very often, but I've heard a lot of people talk about, and I love the idea. If you're gonna seed information on an enemy, just take a piece of paper and write a letter. It's something very simple. It doesn't have to be very long, but meet us at the docks, and then sign it with a conspicuous letter like M.
Yeah, and that could be enough to really pull in an extra player, somebody who's like, ooh, I've got something tactile to work with.
Yeah.
One of the ideas, actually, I wouldn't mind talking about it in one of our sessions. If anybody's interested, please comment and let us know, because I would love to delve in on this. Is the idea of a handout, like I was talking about before yesterday, where I give you this journal, a book, and it has a ton of stuff. It has 100 pages in it that are all full and written. But the stuff is context that you can't possibly understand. But when you come across something in the game that could trigger your understanding, or, oh my goodness, I remember seeing that in the journal, if you roll and make that check to remember at the time, I then grab the handout and I hand it to you, because this is what you remember from the book. It's now, suddenly, those things make contextual sense.
Okay, so insteed of handing out a book with 100 pages of pre-written... I was going to say, that's way too much stuff. You
save the pages, because they're 100 pages, but I don't have to make 100 pages of handouts. I only have to give you a handout on the important context in relation to what's happening
that could be neat. I think putting it in a book...
Well, it's just almost because it's like this 50-50 handout that keeps coming back. It takes this item and kind of puts it into a story position as well.
It depends on how you write it in. It can be very interesting. I like the idea, but I also think that if you turn it into this catch-all...
No, I think it would have to be things for these small clues here and there. Maybe a saver where if you threw a couple things at the party and they're just not getting the thing they're supposed to get, maybe. But that's kind of lazy. But it's a little.
I wouldn't want it to be a fallback for a lot of different things.
Because that can be a really bad habit to get into, I think. But what I mean to say is things like, oh, you're going to the big cavern and you use it like a lore check. Oh, actually, I know the guy who wrote the book. Would that NPC have ever had any relation with this area? Actually, yes, he would have. Hey, roll your intelligence. Okay. You got a 17. Actually, you remember something around page 30 or 40
so
in this thing.
It's an optional handout. Okay, I like that.
And then when you have the handout, you have the symbols.
But
of
again,
the thing that you
in this regard, it's something that you would have to build into a whole story. Or not a whole story, but the arc in question.
Oh yeah. You'd at least have to. Yeah, I would say there would at least be a couple things in there that directly affect the story, or the character NPC is directly linked with the story. And this is actually what it would be insanely crazy. I just thought of it. Would be to run a module with like a Sephiroth-y Final Fantasy VII kind of thing going, where he has this backstory that's complex, complicated, and makes him much less look like a bad guy from his original motivations and intents.
Okay.
So imagine I'm running a game, and there's a party of 4 players, and they're all playing, and we have a big bad. But little do the players know that they also have the big bad's journal. But they don't realize it belongs to the big bad because it belongs to just this guy. So they might even think it's irrelevant. And so over the course of your story arc, you're also revealing through the journal and handouts and different things this perspective of this person who's actually about to follow the same quest line. Because you know how that's a trope of fantasy. The heroes follow the same quest line the bad guy did in order to get the thing they need to beat the bad guy.
Essentially what you're saying...
and in the end, you twist it and show the party members that
it can be cinematically interesting.
Yeah.
But the problem is essentially what you're going to be doing over and over again, either in written context handout or in doing cutscenes. You're going to do a lot of cutscenes. It will not have, in my opinion, it will not have the delivery you're looking for.
Well, I'm thinking more of like just in handouts. Like I don't do the role play scenes at all. All you get in the journal, all you get is that one perspective. And is it a trusted narrator or not? Obviously, this person eventually becomes evil, but the party doesn't know it. So his perspective might be twisted. It might even twist some of the party members that buy into the character in the handout.
You would have to keep those handouts very short.
I think that it would have to be, there would be some handouts that were quite irrelevant, that were emotionally setting and things, like a 1 paragraph long handout. And then there'd be some that were like, oh, you're going into the crazy dungeon of crazy. Well, you're still reading the book, right? Everybody else stopped reading the book. Well, you're still reading the book? Well, there's a section he wrote about the Dungeon of Crazy right here. And it's going to let you know about this one trap that's there.
I don't know. I don't like it.
No?
To me, I don't like it. I could see how it could be interesting, but it puts this heavy reliance on at least one player, hopefully, taking the time to read it, and then once you start to build the thought process that this book follows the same quest line that they're already following, then one of them is just gonna be like, well, I'm gonna read the entire thing.
Yeah, but the information isn't there for the whole thing, and yeah, you can read the whole thing, but think about it this way: if by level 16 you need to be in a frost mountain area, and you need to be in the 3rd dungeon deep in it to get to this one spot to get the item that you're supposed to get to do the thing.
Sure.
This guy doesn't have any concept of what the context is of the thing we went to the Ice Palace dungeon.
No, he has no context except for the fact that he read all 32 steps in front of it.
Yeah, well, no, but the steps aren't line by line. It's just the guy's journal. It just happens that this one dungeon, he reminds you that he was like, yeah, I was really lucky I saw that trap with the blank. I almost didn't and missed it, and that would have been my foot. It's just a benefit for paying into it.
I get what you're saying, but when you get to the point of handouts, you want that... I understand you're saying that they will be immediately relevant at the time, but now you're putting a check behind or in front of it. You're hoping that they even keep the book in the first place.
Yeah. Well, it's not hinged. The story doesn't have to.
No, it doesn't hinge on it, but when you're going to spend the time on a handout, it's a handout that you want to ensure that there's going to be at least a 75% chance, 75% or greater chance that you're going to be using it.
Well, I would like
Otherwise,
to think
it's a wasted effort.
I would like to think
Sorry
that
for cutting you off.
Oh, no, I did the same thing to you. I would like to think that if you did put that in front of the players, that someone would bite it at least a little out of respect, because the idea would be, I don't want to force its relevancy. I want you to invest in it, and then I pay you back for your investment.
I get what you're saying, but it comes down to this weird dichotomy, okay? Either someone's going to read the entire thing, and then you should hand them this stack of things completely out of context and out of order. And they get it all front-loaded, and then they are stuck with this sudden homework of having to read through 30 pages of your garbage writing. Not that your writing is garbage.
No, I get what you're saying, though.
Or you put pieces of that journal in the locations, so you're getting you find a scroll case.
That seems like you're getting set up.
It does seem like you're getting set up, but the thing is, otherwise, it just seems very. It doesn't work for me. Because I'm sorry, but if the wizard, the 18 intelligence guy who reads books like fucking some people eat Wheaties, gets this 100-page thing, he'll probably read it in one night.
But again, if
he has no context, so you should just hand him
context.
your stack of handouts with no context,
Which would be an insane idea.
Which again,
no, that's what you do. You hand it to the player out of context, out of order, and goes, okay, all of these are scribbled. About a third of the words are missing, and everything's out of context. I can hand this to you, and you can read all of it so that you know this whole story. Or we can do it my way, where I'll just let you know when you remember something, if that's cool. And the guy's going to look at the stack of 100 papers and go, your way sounds good, but we'll try it out.
No, some people will, but other people won't. The problem is the moment you hand a book out and you go, it's a book. The player is going to think almost like a video game. Either I'm smart enough to use it and I can get all of the information out of it, like I'm eating a sandwich and getting the calories, or I'm too stupid and right now this book only does me good if I can get more intelligent. I made the same mistake in my Friday game. I gave them a book that as long as it's near a particular colored dragon scale, they can get the history of all those dragons. But I said, even though you can do that, it requires downtime and research to get any meaningful information. And the continuous argument I keep coming back to is, well, I can look through this thing and just find blah, blah, blah's name. And I'm like, sure, but I've already told you, front-loaded, if you're going to use the book for information, you must do research.
Yeah. There's no index or table of contents, and there's 500,000 dragons listed. Yes, if you would like, you can look it up in your book. Each time you look up a new name, it's going to take you 2 weeks.
That's essentially what I said, but the thing is, they keep falling back to, well, but it's only all the black dragons. I should be able to just flip through the book and find, even if it's 5,000 pages, all I'm doing is quickly flipping and looking for a name. And I'm like, yeah, I see your point, but I've already told you this is how this works.
Yeah, well, that's what it should be.
The moment you give them something, especially something like what you're talking about, that is going to be your constant frustration as a DM. Well, we have the book. Why can't I just have all the information?
You do have all the information. Your character does. If you want me to give you all the... Okay, come on over for tea, and I'll blab off your ear for 10 hours about this whole story, and you're going to ruin the surprise. But that's okay, because you're going to know it. Come on by. Oh, when I tell all of you this, it's going to be in the same... I'm actually going to... If somebody wanted me to, I'm really actually going to write up, like, at least 40 pages of just gibberish adventure BSery and make somebody sit there and go, there, you know all of it.
But that's the point. If you're going to if you're saying this is a journal that I'm going to start giving handouts out of,
yeah,
you might as well do the entire journal. Otherwise, give them segments of the journal, or say that most of the journal's faded and destroyed. Here's the 20 pages that are relevant. You're not sure how they fall in a timeline. Or here's the 10 pages. And it's not that you're handing them 10 pages. It's like each portion that's readable is like a sentence or two, half of a paragraph, broken sentences. Write it where, the first 2/3 of the first sentence is completely faded out, so you have the last 2 words, and you have like 5 words of a sentence, 4 faded words, but then you hand them this, and it's like, you've got maybe 20 entries you can read. It took me an hour to write it up. Don't tell them that part, but But if you're going to give something like that, then just either give the entire journal or don't give a journal. Because this entire, you can roll a check and later on maybe get a handout, is frustrating as a player, it would frustrate me.
I thought it'd be a nice surprise. Because you don't know that that's what you're rolling for. Like, you don't ever know if that's what you're rolling for. And then just go, roll an intelligence check real quick. Actually, you remember from the book. Boom, free handout. I thought they'd be so like, oh, fuck yeah, free handout. That they wouldn't even think about that. Wait, there's more free handouts?
Maybe. Again, it's a weird area. I could see it being interesting the first 1 or 2 times.
Well, the idea would be, how cool would it be? Because you could do it through history and tapestries and other ways. But to, like, build the arc of the character before his fall, kind of like
I get the
Tom
idea.
Riddle as opposed to
I get
Voldemort.
the idea, but then instead of one journal, put it in several areas.
But then it really does feel like it's a linear video game, role-playing game.
Sure.
I'll uncover the next step.
But it doesn't feel like I've been holding the information and some inconsequential god's been dicking me in the ass telling me I can't have it.
No, you can have it, but I'm telling you, it's literally impossible for you to make sense of it.
But if you were to write 40 pages, someone like, say, Joey might be able to make sense of your chicken scratch.
Like if I say no, what I mean is something like if I'm directing you towards the mountain, well, the character who's riding it already knows the mountain that he's going to.
Yeah.
So when he says we came across the white mountaintop, doesn't tell you what mountain it is.
Unless, of course, everyone calls it the White Mountaintop.
No, it's a White Mountaintop. It just happens to be where he's at. There's one specific one you'd be referencing, where he's at.
So,
at
no point in the journal he mentions the mountain or the forest or the path, because it's a person writing a daily journal,
not daily,
or a semi-daily or weekly. But the thing is, he's occasionally writing in the book.
What I want, mainly, if I did something like that, would be revealing of the character and the development of the character. So it'd be more about his opinions on the way history is playing out and things like that.
Or
and then every now and then, like right now I'm in the port city of Regabla. We've been here for 3 weeks because I got a job doing this thing. But the Four Master's acting this way, and a lot of the guys feel blankety blank. And then the next entry you have is, I left Rochester. The work there sucked. I've been traveling around. Now I'm kind of looking for some stuff.
I've been kicking around in this damn desert for 2 weeks. Okay, well, where are the nearest deserts to that
halfway
place?
Across the continent.
Okay, well, then he's done a lot of things since then. But the point is, there would still be some context clues. What I'm saying is, if you're going to do the journal, do the journal. If you're going to nut up and do it, just do it.
Make the whole thing.
Just do it.
Fudge that. I just thought it's cool, not for a module. It's way too much stuff for a module, in my opinion.
No, it's a great idea. If you wanted to build a module that ran from 1st to 10th level and it kind of follows the path of someone else, you write the journal.
Like Diablo 2.
Yeah, his was following what's his name, the crazy guy. But we got the bullet points. We didn't get everything he did.
That's what I'm trying to say. You just get the important steps of. But this guy was the cool guy, and then he wasn't a cool.
But here's the thing:
what's going on with
even in his bullet points, right? We got that he started at the rogue camp, the Chicky Amazon camp. Then we got that he traveled with Geed to the desert city. And then in the desert city, we got that he went to a mysterious cave in the desert. So again, although we don't know what he did between Lut Ghislaine and Mysterious Desert Cave, but we do know Lut Ghislaine, Mysterious Desert Camp in...
tapping the table?
Oh, I was tapping my finger, but okay. The Mysterious Desert Camp, or not Desert Camp, the Mysterious Desert Cave where he released Ball. So now we go and talk to the people in Lut Ghislaine. Do you guys know any stories about Ball or Tal Rasha? Why the hell would you even know those names? Well, I read it in this fucking crazy dude's journal. He says, Tal Rasha's tomb, released Ball. What the fuck is Ethereal? Is that a monster out in the desert? Ethereal? What is it?
And most of them wouldn't know.
Most of them wouldn't know, but the thing is, you still have this path. And it's very cool to have the journal, but it still would have these strong bullet points. Sure, it wouldn't tell you which frickin' mountain to go to, but it gives you enough of a clue. Essentially, if you're going to hand that out, this story arc, it kind of gives you the path of what's going on.
Yeah, because most people are going to feel like a video game kind of thing. I was thinking of using it mainly for revealing the character's progression. Like,
sure,
his opinion on things.
His opinion on things, his opinion on shit happening directly around him. But let's say he left Rasharar, or whatever the hell you were saying. And then the next entry is, I was traveling with Cindy and Bob and Tom, and we stopped at this little watering hole. Okay? He hasn't told us what watering hole means. This could be a tavern. It could literally be a watering hole. But then maybe he gives more context. And
no, it's not about the context. He's talking about his relationship with Bob and this, and what I really feel how party members should be thinking and all that. That's the focus, not the information.
But the next part would be, in my opinion, following the same thing you're saying is, and I don't understand why Bob and Cindy keep playing around in the water. I think this is stupid. It's a waste of time, and we're in very unsafe territory. Okay, now we know it's still water. It still could be
unsafe watering hole. I get what you're saying, but what I'm saying is like the idea that the reveal of the character from the first beat of the arc to the end of the arc, by the time it's the end of the arc, by the time you're facing the bad guy, you should be reading in the journal the turn of this guy who you've been reading the whole time that was been decently good, that you've agreed with here and there. Suddenly you realize, oh fuck, this is the guy I'm about to go fight.
So again, if you don't want someone to front load and read the entire thing, which is what any person who has nothing better to do in 8 hours of footwork ahead in their day. If you were walking 8 hours a day and then at night you had about 20 to 30 minutes of light time every day, within about a month or two, especially if you're a high intelligence character, you'd have had it read.
Yeah.
That still doesn't mean that you would have the context to draw to the big bad guy. Because you don't know that part yet. You'll find that out at the very end of the adventure. But the thing is, again, anyone with enough time, especially if they're just doing senseless travel without encounters and stuff, or they're not the lookout, they're going to read the entire thing. So if you're going to make it a handout, make the entire thing a handout.
10,000 page journal. It's going to take a long time.
How long do you think it would take you to read 10,000 pages?
And I'm required to read it?
No, it has pulled your interest.
For 10,000 pages worth of pulled my interest?
It has pulled your interest because you have
I'm going to die. I'm going to die of starvation halfway through reading the book because I'm going to be in my bed not sleeping for the 8th day straight.
You have nothing else to read. You don't have the internet.
Oh, yeah,
you have
I'm
8
dead.
hours of walking.
8 hours of walking. What are you talking about? I'm going to be too busy reading. I'm going to be falling over reading a book.
So, my point...
I jump into a book, all I do is read it. So, yeah.
My point is, someone who's a high intelligence
all you were able
character.
to read was a really interesting story about this cool dude's adventure. It's a fantasy novel you just read.
Okay,
you don't realize until you get to these points where you're like, oh, that's weird. This thing that happened in the book kind of happened right there.
Okay,
so I just reveal it the other direction.
So now, what you really need to do is you need to give the player a summary of what the book is. A very basic summary. It's a fantastic tale where he goes to these, not location names, the types of locations. So you have these
on
ideas.
A quest to get the blanket
because
blank.
now, unless you seed that information, the person's not even going to think about the book.
Until you backload that and you go, oh, actually, there's a scene.
But if you do it that way, and then you go about going, okay, wait a minute. The player, you should wait until the player asks about it, since you've already sent these content without giving a ton of information.
Which means you have to build the book interestingly enough at the beginning for the player to both know that it's important.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just neat, it's important. And that they would go back to check it in.
It is an extreme handout. Like
it is. That's what I do when I think about ideas. I just really go to this other spot.
This makes me think of like the level to which you said you set up your first D&D town, and I was like, okay, I mean, you got a lot of information, but the problem is, you have 110% of something that you needed 60%.
Yeah, and more improv.
Yeah,
and it just makes me feel like if I have everything in my world built, I don't have to go, okay, what can I come up with last minute? It's, no, 1 second, I actually have a thing for that. Okay, yep, right here, let's do that. Oh, it's this. And now I can build the little small things in between.
But because you have everything so firmly built, you don't want to build any small things in between. That's how you work.
Well, for my main town. But then, like, for instance, say I build my main town, and I go, this is where they're going to start because the starting characters dictate that this is possible and everybody's down for this type of game. And so we're going to start in this small town. I'm going to build out the whole small town, most likely. But what I'm going to do is then build out the area around the small town lightly so I know what is going to be nearby and things like that.
Lightly?
Well, I'm going to build what's there, what their government structure is, a short back history of what their relationship with other people around them are. That way I get the motivations for when I do need to improv.
And the farmers?
Them. Oh, in that starting town? Yeah, there's probably
no, the ones around the farming town.
Around the farming town? Yeah. I just lump them in with the farming town.
Okay, so how far outside of the farming town in miles is going to get firm?
Just the town, the starting town. Yep. It's going to get real firm though, probably. Like down to like who's working in the bar and what time church services are and who the church person is.
Well, actually, see, the time of church services you should know just because of your pantheon. So are you just going to use the core Pantheon, or are you going to go crazy?
Well, in my world that I want to run, it's the gods. I'm not sure how I'm going to be running it. I think it's really going to be based on if the players are dead set in becoming a cleric of some sort, and not just in name but in actual class, and to the point where they get the ability to actually contact their divination. I'm going to probably work with the player and be like, hey, beforehand, before the game even starts, I'm going to be like, hey, what kind of pantheons are you thinking that you're interested in or your character's interested in? And then I'll start building that pantheon as the pantheon of the game we're playing. And that way you can kind of tap into the god you want. Although most of the gods in my game are irrelevant because they're not powerful, because they've been disconnected in such a fashion from their faith. Like, people don't believe in the power of a god anymore because more people are like, God, that's a child's.
So
The only reason you have to worry about God is the fear of the lightning and the fire coming. Like almost like a monotheism. Sorry, I'm just.
I think the more important question here is: did the people walk away from gods, or did the gods walk away from people?
Gods walked away from people.
Okay, yeah, so
and then
it works.
The people now, it's more like a nature as God, like just raw chaotic nature is being interpreted as God's will, like in a medieval or dark age sense. Did we get another guy come pop on? So yeah, that's what we were talking about with module creation. We already had built Lurks. Hey, Lurks is back. Module creation, and we should be out by before the end of July, I believe.
We're hoping to be done with the first module by the end of July.
Yeah. But there'll be some cool ideas in it. And Module 2 and 3 are going to be really dope because I haven't seen a lot of non-linear modules. Or modules where there's more than one play path, like Chrono Trigger. What you do actually affects the world in the future, and therefore you can have different endings.
That's kind of the thought process we're approaching it with. So that's hopefully the end goal.
Yeah.
But we're running a bit shy on our time here, so we're going to end up calling it a day.
Yep, good afternoon. It's been nice. Midday coffee with Bullcritter's Corner.
Yep. This is Steve.
And this is John.
And y'all have a wonderful day.
You have a nice night. OBS!